Hi guys. I'm here on my daughter's just turned 1 year old today, and she recently graduated from having to wear this thing. It's a cranial tech helmet, which treats flathead, also the technical term plagiocephaly. I think I said that right. So being that we just finished, I wanted and had a couple of friends ask me for their children, because they've been I had a couple friends who are considering doing the treatment as well. I thought I'd give you just my quick feedback. So I'm gonna explain the process, and then at the end show you how I put it on her head and a before and after picture, and hopefully the information will help anybody considering or in the process already of treating their child's flathead with one of these helmets. So the company we used was Cranial Tech, and it was around her we were starting to see signs of flathead around 3 to 4 months. The pediatrician made a note of it and said it wasn't anything too serious, and to check back in 6 months. And so during that time in between, he said to do a lot of tummy time, don't have her on her back, and we did all of that and nothing really changed. So we ended up, he wrote us a prescription at our 6-month appointment, and she's trying to get the camera, it's shaky. And so we didn't really pull the trigger right away because she was in the moderate range. So that means it wasn't too bad where it was necessary, but it wasn't too mild where we didn't have to do it. So it was really up to us. And so we tried to do as much research as we could, and there wasn't much to find, but based on the research we saw, there weren't any real drawbacks of doing it other than the fact that your kid has to wear this helmet all day every day for a few months. And so we ended up, the drawbacks of not treating it, and if it gets worse, is their eyes and features could become misaligned, and their ears, things could become distorted. And being that the side, the drawbacks of not treating it was a lot worse than treating, we decided to just go ahead and do it. We ended up, I think, putting it on around, I want to say between 7 and 8 months, right? And so before I get into the process, the reason that she got this flathead, I know a lot of moms, when I was trying to do my research, a lot of moms felt really bad having to have their kid do this because they felt they did something wrong. And it's not an ideal situation, but some of the causes that were mentioned to us were that it just happens in the womb based on the placement of how they grew. It could just start there, and there's nothing you could have ever done. Another factor that contributes to the flathead is the new SIDS recommendation for babies to sleep on their back. So the more they sleep on their back, the weight of the head can cause it to be flat, especially if you have them sleep on their back and then have them on their back in a lot of more situations. And then also preterm babies that are in ICU when they're young and have to be on their back for extended periods of time. So the more they're on their back, the more tendency to get flatheads. So that's why we're seeing it a lot more. And then I have my own theory that I'm adding in there, because my daughter, she was a large baby. She was 9 pounds in the womb, and her head size and just overall body size and weight is in the 99th percentile. So that means that there's only 1% of babies that have a larger head than she does. And so my theory is that her size of her head is a lot heavier than the average baby. So when she was sleeping on her back in the crib during her early, months, she just had more weight, which caused it to be flat. So that's my theory. And in the appointments that I was going to at Cranial Technologies, there were a lot of large babies there. Like everybody had a really big baby with a really big head. So I'm like, there might be something with just the size of the baby. So let's see, I have some more notes here. As far as the process went, when we finally decided to do it, we had to check with our insurance because it was going to be a few $1,000s to do the treatment, and luckily our insurance covered 80%. So, you know, we still had to cover a few $100s out of pocket, but at least it wasn't like thousands of dollars. And then what we did was we went in for an initial appointment, and they kind of like checked out the head and gave us their recommendations and whether it needed to, she needed the helmet or not, and then gave us all the information we need. They checked with our insurance to make sure it was covered, and then it was up to us if we wanted to move forward. So we ended up calling them saying we wanted to move forward. Then we scheduled another appointment, and they sized her head, and they put this funny stocking on her face where she looks like a bank robber, and they put her in this machine. They get a nice full frontal side profile view picture of their head so you can see the actual shape, and I'll show you guys the before and after at the end of this. And then we set up another appointment. I think it was like a month later. No, it was like 2 weeks later, and they gave us the helmet. And then they showed us how to put it on, showed us how to clean the helmet, and then we started day one of her wearing this bad boy right here. So day one was definitely the hardest for both mother and daughter. She and our, you know, the person we were working with did tell us that it does increase body temperature. So what happened was I don't know if you can see, but it's like insulated with styrofoam. And, you know, when you have something on your head, a lot of heat is released from your head. So when you have styrofoam, it's keeping that all insulated. So her body temperature increased. And so she was sweating more and was a little more uncomfortable in the beginning. But what happens is your body adjusts. As soon as it, you know, gets used to the fact that you have this insulation, then it redistributes, or I don't know, your body does something where it learns to cool the body temperature down. But the first, you know, 3 days or so is a little uncomfortable. And day one, you know, she had disrupted sleep. So she was at the point prior to putting the helmet on where she started sleeping through the night a little bit, which was great. And then putting this thing on totally just disrupted that. And I was like, you know, as a new mom, a first-time mom, it was just a little frustrating. And I felt bad because, you know, my daughter was uncomfortable, and you know, it makes me feel sad that she has to go through this. But by day 3, she was like, it was nothing. Like, it was just a part of her routine. She wasn't fazed by it. And actually, it came in handy when she started walking or trying to walk, because she had a couple of falls and she would hit her head on things, which, you know, normally without a helmet, I would have been really freaking out and she probably would have really hurt herself. But, you know, the helmet helped save her in those situations. And then what else? Another thing is when you put it on the first 3 days, you have to be aware of any red marks. So they told us just to check if there's any red marks that last for over 2 hours, I believe. And if that's the case, that means it's too tight in certain areas. So I'll show you at the end how the helmet fits on her. There should be a little room for wiggle room. So if it's not wiggling and there's no space, then it's too tight and it's gonna be uncomfortable for your child. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And then as far as care goes, you have to wash it daily. The child wears this 23 hours a day, and we were very strict with it because, you know, we wanted it to work faster. So at first they were saying she only needed to wear it maybe 3 months total, but it ended up being a little bit longer than that just because of how fast her head grew, the pacing of it. But we only took it off when she took a bath. So right before she bathed, you know, I would get her bath ready, I would take this off. And then you can't put water, you have to use alcohol. So you get like a towel, rag, sponge, whatever you want, and just put alcohol on it or spray alcohol inside it, and you just wipe it with alcohol and let it air dry. That's it. Like I said, because it is warmer, the baby will sweat, their hair will get greasy, and it will, you know, have the little sweat odor to it. So you need to be really consistent with cleaning it, because otherwise it'll get pretty funky. So that's how we would clean it. And then after her bath, we'd let her kind of play around a little bit for a good 15 minutes to let her hair dry. And then we just put it back on and put her to bed. And you know, she slept pretty well with it after, you know, after we got those first few days out of the way. She slept pretty good. And I think that's really it. So I feel I covered everything that I could think of, that questions I had. And then I'll just show you how we put it on. So you have the strap.
It's one strap, and it's all one piece except for this one part. And there's like this middle section with no Velcro, and that's where you just want to lightly fold it over. You don't want to like pull it tight.
Yeah, don't pull it tight, definitely.
You just lightly set it. And this, you see how there's like a little widow's peak there? That's how you know this is the front. Obviously the back part's longer. But then you can tell when, you know, when her little eyes are here, if it's like off center. And you just want to make sure her ears don't get caught like underneath this or whatever. But we didn't really have to worry about it. She seemed real comfortable in it. Come here.
Okay, one last time, Luna.
Come here.
Just like, no, I'm done with that helmet. And so they told us to put it on from the back and push it forward. So we'll see if she'll let us do it.
Okay. One last time.
So you have to, unstrap it and stretch it.
And when she's like this, usually you have two people do it. From the back forward. And then...
make sure it goes over the ear.
And then you just gently put the Velcro over, and that's it.
There she is. And she wore that for a good 4 months, I think, total. And we got good results. There's some babies that had it for like 6 months and they were still waiting. So there you go. Yay, say bye-bye. Say bye-bye, people.